Hey everybody, welcome back. So let's close out the amazing Evil Dead franchise with Army of Darkness. Since, like I said, I had to do this out of order, do the remake after the original, which, like I said, actually made it more interesting. Seeing the original and then the remake, and then seeing two in Army of Darkness. Like just seeing that the real horror ones first, and then just gradually getting more comedic as it goes. Which is one thing I want to talk about first, is just the evolution of this series is fascinating to me. Like the way that just on such a small budget, like $350,000, something like that, for the first Evil Dead, and the way that Raimi was able to pull off that movie under extreme crazy conditions, like I mentioned, everyone going through hell making that movie, and was still able to make one of the greatest horror movies ever, in my opinion. And then we went to Evil Dead 2, and the budget was much higher. I think it was like 10 times as much, like 3 million or something like that, 3 point something million, almost 4. And you can see it in the movie. You can see it in Evil Dead 2. Like, obviously, you can see how much bigger the budget is. And then we get to Army of Darkness, which was even much bigger. It was like $11 million budget. And you have Universal Pictures here, Universal Studios and stuff. Like, this is like a studio Evil Dead film. And there's certain things in it that absolutely shows that this was a studio film and everything. I'll get more into that. And we also see like the evolution of Ash, which a lot of people have a lot of different opinions on their favorite Evil Dead movie and their favorite version of Ash and everything. We have Ash in the first movie, who, like I said in one of the videos, that he can just be basically any of the 5 friends there. Like, he has his moments, but he's not Ash at that point. Like, he's still just Ashley. And then in Evil Dead 2 is when we start getting the Ash that we know and love. But he's still not there yet. This movie, this is the Ash. Like, this is Ash at his pinnacle. This is Ash that became a cultural icon. This is Ash that we all know and love today. And actually, a side note, I actually just found out, because I was talking about birthdays, because my father's birthday is coming up. He was born in 58. It's coming up in like a few days. And that made me think, how old is Bruce Campbell now? And I looked it up. His birthday was just like a week ago. It was like on the 22nd. So happy birthday, Bruce. And I'll even retroactively say, you know, I did this series for Bruce's birthday. I'll be like Bruce, trying to retroactively say, connect the first and second movies. So yeah, I decided to do all this as a birthday present to Bruce Campbell. But just like the evolution of the series and Ash's character. And like I said, there's many people who like, I don't know really anyone who prefers Ash from the first movie over any of the others. But I definitely know people who prefer Ash from the second movie, and I know a ton of people who prefer him from Army of Darkness, which is pretty much the same Ash we get ever since. And Ash vs. Evil Dead and stuff is basically just Ash from Evil Darkness. That when he becomes just this is the movie where he becomes just that cocky buffoon, like full of himself, but still like brave hero for some reason. Like, it's just, this is the Ash we all know and fell in love with. But there's arguments to be made about Ash in Evil Dead 2, man. Like, in Evil Dead 2, like, it's still Ash. It's the beginning of Ash. But it's different. Like, it's basically like he's not a buffoon. He's not a hero in any way. He's terrified in that film. Like, that movie, Evil Dead 2, is like, you can argue that it's just him having a mental breakdown, a nervous breakdown from just everything going on around him. And I know people, a lot of people, who prefer that version of Ash compared to the more comedic and buffoon and just full of himself with all the quotable lines and everything. For me, I don't know. Like, I really, really love Evil Dead 2, obviously. I love this entire franchise to death. And I love Ash's character in it. But just from how, you know, like by the time I saw these movies and stuff, they were all out already. And even though the first Evil Dead was the first one I saw and was blown away by it, I don't know, it's just the Ash from Army of Darkness and the one that we all know and love today. And through Ash vs. Evil Dead and everything, and it's just my favorite. Like, it's Ash Williams. It's fucking Bruce Campbell, man. I mean, come on. It's amazing. So we got, obviously, Raimi directing again, and we have Ivan Raimi, his older brother, who wrote this script with Sam, which is cool to see, him working with his older brother as well. And obviously starring the great, brilliant, don't even have to say it, Bruce Campbell. And we have Ted Raimi in here, which is, like I said in another video, it's always great to see him. Ever since his first acting gig, basically, a small role in Blood Rage, which is, as I've said, one of my favorite slashers from the 80s. He plays like a bunch of roles in this movie. Like, and two of them are just hysterical, and I'll get to that later. And he does like voices for the skeletons and stuff. Like, Ted was very involved in this movie. And you can tell, like, if you know Ted Raimi by now and stuff, like, you can look at this movie and see and hear Ted's influence and stuff, like, all over this movie. But we open up with Ash walking through the desert and stuff, chained with with Henry and his crew and everything. And he gives his little voiceover and recap from the last movie and saying he's a slave, but that makes no sense. Like, yeah, I said in Evil Dead 2 video, I said the continuity for this series and franchise is so all over the place and so different from movie to movie to the TV show. Just everything is just completely different from time to time, from like installment to installment. And I said, I am huge on continuity. I hate when most movies break, with sequels and further installments and franchises, break continuity. Whether it be like changing an actor or an actress and stuff like that, to just small continuity errors and stuff. It's a huge thing for me. Like, I do not like that. This is one of the only franchises that does not bother me in the slightest, because it's still brilliant no matter what. But he says he's a slave, yet at the end of Evil Dead 2, when he gets sucked through the portal, he's being hailed as a fucking hero. Like, no, and he's not even a slave, he's a fucking prisoner. Like, he's not a slave. That implies that he's doing stuff for these people. He's not. He's being walked and led to his death. He is a straight up prisoner in the beginning of this movie. And then we see him saying how he had a job, and we get the classic line, and we get S-Smart for the first time. You know, shop smart, shop at smart. Like, so good. We have Bridget Fonda as our third Linda in the franchise, and God, she's so gorgeous. She was so gorgeous back then. And she was in a lot more scenes. Like, and she ended up getting in this movie because her agent called up Raimi or Tapper or somebody, and you know, at the top involved, and said that Fonda is a huge fan of the first two Evil Dead movies, and is there any like little role or any way she can be involved? And they ended up making her Linda, and they had more scenes shot with her and stuff, but they ended up only being able to use like the very first shot, like, that she's in the movie, and then the ending, the S-Smart ending, because there's two endings to this movie, which we'll get to, obviously. But, oh, she's so gorgeous in this movie, Bridget Fonda, man. And this whole recap at the beginning adds credence and more evidence to what I was saying in the last video of Evil Dead 2, that it's a remake. Evil Dead 2 is a remake, an update to the first movie. It is not a sequel. And like I said, everyone can believe what they want, have their own opinions 100%. But to me, like I said, I won't hear anything else about it. It's a fucking remake, Evil Dead 2. And this recap at the beginning of this adds more proof to that. He doesn't say that he went to the cabin with his friends and stuff like that, and all the crazy shit had happened, and then he went back to the cabin with another girlfriend. And no, he says he went to his cabin with him and his girlfriend, Linda. And then Linda got possessed by the Deadites, the demonic force and everything, and he had to kill her, and then he got possessed and stuff, and then they show the event and a few events from Evil Dead 2 and him getting sucked through the rift and him ending up here in Army of Darkness. So again, that just more proof. Evil Dead 2 remake, update, not a sequel. There's so many memorable characters in this movie, just like in every other movie. That was one of my gripes with the remake. Besides loving the remake to death, is the characters were not that memorable, aside from Mia and Eric. The rest of the franchise, every character is memorable for me. And this movie's no exception. Like, just the wise man, Henry is amazing. Just the presence that he brings every time he's on screen is amazing. Like, he's such a great character. And Arthur, King Arthur and stuff is great too. And he even said in an interview that this was something completely different for him to do. Because he's British and stuff. Like, he's used to doing like Shakespeare and stuff. Even Campbell said in an interview, like, these English guys and stuff, they're used to just sitting on tea and doing like Shakespeare and stuff. And now he's in like this Evil Dead crazy fucking movie that... But he does such a great job too. Like, everyone does such a good job in this. Like, I love when the wise man at the very beginning, after he falls to the ground from the portal and everything, and he says that to Arthur, like, this is the man prophesied from the Necronomicon to come save us. And Arthur's just like, this buffoon? And like, he's like, no, he's part of Henry's men. He's just like, to the pit with them. And so funny. And man, Sheila too, the actress who plays Sheila, I forget her name, but she is so beautiful, and she is just such a lady. She is just such a proper lady, a proper woman, just like absolutely stunning woman. And they had to fight to get her in this movie with Dion De Laurentiis, because he even with Evil Dead 2, but much more with this, was handling like the overseas sales and everything and distribution for the movie. And Campbell was saying that they can't just show, like, when you show like casting and stuff to a producer and stuff like that, you can't just show one pick. You have to show like a few. So they had to show some other woman playing for the role, like, trying to be cast for the role, and she was a lot more shapely and big-breasted and everything like that, and De Laurentiis wanted her, but like Campbell, Raimi, like, they did not like her performance at all. They loved the one who ended up playing Sheila, and that was their pick. Like, they didn't want to budge on it. But De Laurentiis was just like like obsessed just with the shape and figure of this other actress, who was nowhere near as good as the one who was finally cast. And like, it was actually a major fight to get this actress in this movie. And they had to like remake her up and stuff like that, and reshoot some scenes and send it to De Laurentiis, and he finally caved. Which is, thank God he did, man, because she's so great in this. And we get the classic line from Ash to Henry, when he said he's the leader of the Northlands and everything. He's like, you ain't leading but two things right now, Jack and shit. And Jack just left town. Fucking every line in this movie, like, when people like say lines from Ash Williams and stuff, it's from this movie. Like 90% of the time. Maybe some Evil Dead 2 quotes, but like Groovy, his first Groovy and stuff. But all of his classic lines are from this movie, are from Army of Darkness, for sure, without a doubt. And it's just amazing. They're just like all iconic lines. Like, if I had to write down every quote from Ash in this movie, we'd never be done here. It's just one after another after another. And then we get the whole pit scene and stuff, and they push the first guy in, and we just get the fountain of blood that just shoots up into the sky, and everyone starts cowering back and everything. Like, they've never seen this before, but yet this pit's been there, and like, it implies they've used it before for traitors and for, captures and stuff like that, prisoners. And so that they like act like way too surprised like by what happens. And then the whole pit scene when Ash gets thrown in and stuff, and just with the Deadite there, and him punching, fighting the Deadite, and the wise man comes and throws the chainsaw down, and we get him jumping near with his stub and sticks it right into the end of the chainsaw and destroys the Deadite, and we get the other Deadite, and they call for the spikes to come, and the walls with the spikes are closing in like Star Wars style compactor, and he just like takes his belt out and he becomes like a fucking superhero in this movie. He just fucking throws his belt on the chain and lifts himself out and everything. Awesome. Such a great scene. And like I said, Henry is just such a great character. The way he just like goes up to Bruce and to Ash, and he just like grabs him and stuff. He's like, yes, and he just like he starts cackling and laughing and like riding out of there and stuff. So funny. Then we just get the first time we hear him refer to his shotgun as the boomstick. It's like that whole scene too, like with him just taking control of the whole situation and knocking out Arthur, and just everyone is terrified of him at this point after him escaping out of the pit that assumedly, like I said, they've used before, and nobody wants anything to do with him, and you go going around and saying, you want some? You want to deal with this? And the way that he just talks about the boomstick and stuff, and he's holding it up and he just does like his sales pitch like he's at S-Mart. He's like, got get it at S-Mart and stuff. Double barrel or whatever is the model and everything. He's like, goes for $109.95, and like he just gives like this whole sales pitch on the shotgun and stuff to these people from the 1300s. Like, oh, it's so funny. That's such a great scene. And then we have the scene with the witch, or the like potion lady or whatever the hell she is in the castle, and she turns into a Deadite, saying you'll never get the book and everything like that, and he shoots her and has that whole little sequence with her. And that leads to like my biggest gripe with this movie. There's no gore. There's no blood or gore in this movie, except for the fountain of blood that comes out of the pit at the very beginning. Like, I don't, like, and I can see why, like I was saying earlier, with it being on such a bigger budget, it's a studio film, you got Universal Studios and stuff here, and it makes sense. Like, they probably just wanted to, I don't think it was Raimi. I don't think Raimi was trying to cater to a bigger audience or anything. I think it was the studios. And you can also argue, too, that, like, there's so much effects in this movie. Everything, just from the stop motion and then all the props that had to be made, and the skeletons and the Deadite makeup and just everything. The set, they actually built like one long ass wall of an actual castle, and then the rest was like filled in with effects and stuff like that. But like, they had so much effects to do for this movie that maybe they just didn't focus on gore or anything. I don't know, but it's my biggest gripe with this movie. And like I said, I love this movie to death. It's not like a major gripe that ruins the film for me in any way. But I can just think of, like, if you just took the gore from the first two movies and added that in here, would be so much better. But we got what we got, and it's still brilliant. So it really doesn't matter. We get the iconic mechanical hand for Ash and stuff. Awesome. Just the way them making it, then him pumping it on and stuff. And I remember Raimi saying, or Tappert saying, that the way Raimi wanted it designed was like after a toy when he was younger, like like a glove thing or a gun or something like that, like a toy gun that you would have to pump it. So he wanted that implemented and stuff, and that's why they ended up making it that you have to, like, Ash pumps it onto himself when he's putting it on. And then he grabs the fucking chalice or whatever, the drink, and he just crushes it. So good. And then we just get the infamous words, man. The Klaatu Barada Nikto. Make sure you say them exactly. Oh man, this movie's so brilliant. It's so funny. The point of view, the POV shot in the woods, like as it's like just like in the other movies, but as it's like going through the woods and then it's splitting through the trees and stuff like that. That had to be a hard shot to get, man. Like, it's not like the first two movies when it's just weaving around the trees and stuff. Like, the trees are like splitting as the camera's going right through it. Like, that had to be a real hard shot to get. We have the mini ash scene, which again is just hysterical, and just like I said in Evil Dead 2, like Raimi and Campbell and stuff were huge Three Stooges fans, and it absolutely shows in this movie. It did in Evil Dead 2 also to an extent, like in the scenes with Ash breaking the plates on his face and throwing himself all over the place and everything like that. But this movie, like, some of the scenes are just straight up skits, like could be skits with the Three Stooges. Like, you can absolutely see the influence, like 100%. So we have the mini ashes that pop out and stuff like that, and they're all just antagonizing him and stabbing him with a fork and fucking all the crazy thing. They tie him up like Gilligan's Island style and everything. Like, so good, man. And he puts his face gets stuck to the grill or whatever, and he has to like spatula it off. But yet his face looks perfect. Like, there's no burn marks or anything. Like, he drinks the scalding water after the mini hymn, like, jumps down his mouth and everything, and yet he's completely fine after that. Like, drinking scalding hot water like that would destroy your fucking vocal cords. You're fucking going to your lungs. It's fucking, you would not be fine. That's the point I'm trying to make. You would not be fine. But again, it's just the slapstick humor. Those are just little nitpicks. And then we have just the fight between good and bad Ash and everything. And again, this is where the gore thing comes in. Like, when he shoots him and stuff, and then he takes the chainsaw to him to like slice, when he's slicing him up with dismembering him with the chainsaw and stuff. The other movies, we would have seen just arms, legs, head, blood, gore being chopped off, and just all of that. And so we get nothing here. But again, it's just my biggest gripe of the movie, but it's such a small gripe in the grand scope of this franchise that it really doesn't matter. Like, this movie is just a straight up fantasy action comedy with small horror elements. That's the best way I would describe this movie. I would never refer to this movie as a horror film, like just a straight horror film. Absolutely not. This is a adventure fantasy comedy, like through and through, and I love it to death for that. And then we have the cemetery scene when he sees the 3 books, and the Necronomicon looks nothing like the Necronomicon from the first 2 movies. Like, completely different. And I know that they made like 5 or 6 versions, and that somebody actually stole like the main book that they made, like the prop, like during like the very beginning of filming, which I mentioned in one of the earlier reviews, I think. But fucked up, man. But I can see where they're coming from in a way, just because like they must have already knew how iconic that book became with the first 2 movies. But to steal a prop like that, man, that's fucked up. But who knows how that book looked? Maybe that book was the main book. Maybe it looked a lot closer to the book from the first 2 movies. But these books look nothing like, not nothing, but like they really look a lot different than the first 2 films, for sure. And we have him trial and error with the books, and goes sucked into one of them and comes out with his face elongated, and he's shaking it, and it's still his face isn't right. He shakes his head again and stuff. So funny. And then the other one flies around and is attacking him and everything. He's like, I'll get back to you later. And then we have probably the most infamous scene from this movie, or just lines from this movie, when he has to say the words again. And it's just like, Klaatu, Barada. Damn it, wait a minute. What was the word again? Like, it's an N-word. It's like necktie, or and he keeps saying it's an N-word, and like that must have sounded bad back then. And it reminds me of Joe Rogan in one of his stand-up specials when he's saying like 3 magic words that like you can't say and stuff, and like the N-word is one of them. And he says it, and he's like, see? He's like, even explaining it's a bad word, and it's like, gets a bad reaction. He's like, I almost never use the N-word. I never use the N-word, unless I'm positive there's no black people around. That's so funny. But that always reminds me of that ever since I saw that special. Anytime I see this movie since then, it reminds me of that for some reason. So funny. And then we have the skeletons in the ground scene, and this is, like I said, just straight up could be a Three Stooges skit. Just like a much darker themed one, with all the hands coming out of the ground, smacking Ash in the face left and right, putting their fucking bone hands through his mouth and grabbing his tongue, and like the scars that Ash has in this movie throughout, I would not be surprised at all if those are just real cuts and marks and stuff on his face. 100%. Like, I didn't look into it, but I really don't think all of that's just makeup. I think that's just him, like, after getting the shit kicked out of him and beating himself up through this whole movie. And like I've said in all these videos so far in this franchise, just Raimi just tortures the shit out of his best friend, man. Especially in this movie. Like, I think it was even Raimi, like, with some of the skeleton hands and stuff, smacking Bruce in the face and everything. And I mentioned in the last video that in this movie, Raimi, like, looked down at the cameraman or somebody and said, like, look, I can get Bruce to do anything. And he started quacking, dancing like a chicken and stuff. And Bruce is like, are you serious? He's like, yeah, I'm serious. He's like, and like, he had to do like a line dance with the skeletons Raimi's telling him to do, and he's like, you gotta be kidding me, Raimi. He's like, no, I'm not, I'm serious. Like, and he starts doing it and everything, and never use the scene, right? That like cracks me up every time watching these movies, just knowing how Raimi fucks with Bruce through all of his films. So funny. I love when he returns back to the castle and stuff, and like people are all like congratulating him. He's like, yeah. And then like the third one, he's like, get the fuck out of my face. That's so fucking hysterical. And then back to the cemetery thing. How do I even forget this? And then he finally, when he says the words, like, Klaatu, Barada, oh, it's so funny. That is so classic. I don't know how I skipped over that, man. But, oh, what a classic line. And then again, when he gets back and stuff, and the wise man comes up to him, he's like, because like they had like the lightning and everything like that, so like he knew something was kind of wrong. He's like, you said all the words, right? And he's like, yeah, I said the words, basically. He's like, what do you mean, basically? He's like, did you say the words exactly? Like, well, maybe I didn't say every single little tiny syllable, but I said them, yeah. Oh, that's such a great line. That might be my favorite line in this movie. That and the whole 3 words that he can't get out and coughing and stuff like that. But that is such a great line. Then we have the flying demon who takes Sheila, and it looks great. Like, it looks much better than the one at the end of Evil Dead 2. And even that one looked good. Because we have K&B, special effects back here doing the majority of the effects for this movie. I think there was another team that worked on like Dead-Eyed Ash and stuff like that. And like they worked on like maybe 30% of the effects in the movie, and the rest was all Nicotero, Kurtzman, and Berger doing the effects for this movie. And like I said, man, they had some work that they had to put in, because the amount of effects in this movie is stunning that they were able to pull all this off. I mean, they had an $11 million budget, sure, but still, the amount of work that had to go into all of the effects and props and molds and casting and everything in this movie, the stop motion, everything had to be just unreal, and just so much work, man. Like Rob Bottin level of working on the Thing, which still blows me away that Bottin was only like in his early 20s, like 21, 22, when he did the effects for the Thing. And he was working like fucking like 12 to 18 hour days, 7 days a week for like a year or something like that. And yet they had to treat him for exhaustion like numerous times and stuff. Like, damn, man, just the amount of work that he put into that film. It's my favorite horror movie of all time, The Thing, which I've said on here many times. And same thing here, like the amount of work that they had to have put in to this movie to get every prop, every effect, everything is just astounding. It really is. And I love when we have Ted Raimi as playing one of the soldiers and stuff, when they're all debating whether they're gonna stay and fight and everything. And he's like, he's the only one going like, no, I'm scared, I don't want to die and stuff. And then like 2 minutes later, not even, when Bruce is like saying who's with me and stuff, like he's the second one, and he's playing a different character, and he's like, "You can count on my steel." Like, that's so funny. Ted is he's another genius, man. Like the fucking Raimi brothers, man. Even Ivan too, for writing this stuff. They just got some sort of DNA, man. They really do. Fucking amazing. Ted is so great. I love Ted. Seeing Ted in anything is a treat for sure. Ash teaching the knights how to fight with the swords or the spears or whatever. That's hysterical. That is so funny. That he's a fucking employee at a supermarket. And yeah, he fought the Deadites a little bit in the cabin and stuff like that, but he didn't know what the hell he was doing. And he comes back to the 1300s, where they are actual knights who fight all the time using swords and everything like this. And you have Ash teaching them like choreographed fight sequences and stuff. That's so funny. That is hysterical. Absolutely hysterical. And then we have the whole ending with the whole battle and everything. I mean, there's so much you could talk about with it, but this will run so long. But just like when Ash is digging out of the Delta and everything, the trunk, and for some reason happens to have a chemistry book in there. Maybe I guess it makes sense. Like they're college students and stuff in the first movie, going up to the cabin and everything. It makes sense. He might have that in there. And he's like in the blacksmith. There's another great character. The blacksmith is so memorable in this movie. He's great. It's killing me. I can't remember the actor's name. Can't remember who played him. It's like on the tip of my tongue. I can't remember it. But he's another amazingly memorable character in this movie. Like all the main characters in this movie just do such a phenomenal job. Like if Evil Dead 2 was pretty much like Bruce's movie, this isn't as much. Obviously he does carry the majority of the film. But the rest of the main characters in this movie are just so good and so memorable in their roles that it feels more like an ensemble cast than just Bruce, like in the second movie. And the second one had all memorable characters too. I love every single one of them. But I don't know, you know what I mean? Like what I'm talking about? Like this movie just seems like Evil Dead 2 seemed more of like Bruce's show. And then this one just seems more like just an ensemble cast of just amazing actors and amazing characters. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but you get what I'm trying to say. Come on. And when he's making the gunpowder and everything like that, and then the wise man is holding a bag of it, and he puts it over the candle, and Ash moves his hand back, and so funny. And then they use those to rig the arrows and catapults with and stuff with gunpowder while they're shooting at all the army of Deadites and skeletons, and it's exploding them all apart and everything. So good, so awesome. And that whole scene with the Delta rigged up and stuff with just like the propeller blade or whatever that is, and mowing down all the skeletons and everything like that. That whole sequence with the Delta is just so good. This line for some reason just always cracks me up. I don't know, it probably does for many, many other people, but just when evil Sheila, like Deadite Sheila, jumps on Bruce, I can't, like I said in the last video, I can't call him Ash specifically. Like it'll just come out as Bruce or it'll come out as Ash, like one way or the other. To me, they're the same person. Like Bruce is Ash Williams and Ash Williams is Bruce Campbell. So if I say Bruce or Ash, you know who the hell I'm talking about. It doesn't really matter. But when Deadite Sheila climbs on his back, and he's like, he just says, the way he delivers the line, he's just like, "You crazy bitch, get that off of me." That cracks me up every time I see this movie, man. That is so funny. "You crazy bitch, get off of me." That's so funny. And we have the whole battle of Ash versus Deadite Ash and everything, which is like Bruce had to learn some, like, not even like all the torture that Sam puts him through and all the slapstick he had to do. He had to learn how to ride a horse. He had to learn like choreographed fight scenes and stuff. Like he really had to do so much for this movie, man. And I love after they defeat the army of the undead and everything, when you have Henry's crew on one side and you have Arthur's on the other, and you think that they're gonna, like, the Arthur and Henry step forward and you think they're gonna like start fighting each other, and like after all this crazy shit that just happened and them helping each other, and you think after all that they're just gonna go back to hating each other's guts, and then they just run up and hug each other. And so that's such a great scene. That's so cool. Then we get the ending. The ending I always knew was the S-Mart ending, which I'll get into what I think of both of them, but the S-Mart ending, that with him back at S-Mart, and just his cockiness and everything, and just like his total exaggerations of him saying like, yeah, so I came back, I could have stayed, like I could have stayed with Sheila, I could have stayed back there, they wanted me to stay, and they wanted me to teach them how to be king and like how to run the place and everything. Like, oh, it's so ridiculous. He's so full of shit. It's so funny. Like, you teach them about being king and stuff like that. Wouldn't we hear no one say that to him at all? Like, it's so funny. And then we have Ted Raimi again in another role. It's a small role. And so, did you say the words right this time? And we have him repeat my favorite line again. He's like, well, maybe I didn't say every tiny little syllable, but I said them, yeah. Oh, so great. And then we have the Deadite appear and stuff, and him just blasting her around with the shotgun and everything, saying, ma'am, I'm gonna have to ask you to get out of the store and everything. So cool. And then we see Bridget Fonda again come up and, you know, hail to the king, baby. We get our first hail to the king line, which is just brilliant. And then we have the alternate ending. That was, I think, because that was the theatrical ending, if I'm not mistaken, right? The S-Mart one. So I don't know how I always remembered that ending. If the alternate one was like the VHS one. Like, I know I've seen both a bunch of times, but I don't know why I always remember the S-Mart one more than this one. But when we have Ash drinks the potion and stuff, and they say that like one drop will keep a man asleep for 100 years, you know, for a century, and take 6 drops and you'll be back home. And then he goes and buries himself in the cave and stuff, and he starts taking the drops and everything. He gets to 5, and then like something crumbles like in the cave, and he goes back and counts 5 again, and then 6. And he takes too much, just sleeps for too long, and he wakes up in like just like a dystopian destroyed future and everything, and he's like, no, I slept too long. Which, it's a much more grim ending, man. Like, and I love me some grim endings in movies. Like I said, I have a very dark sense of humor, so like that ending, I actually like that ending. I don't prefer it to the S-Mart one, because first of all, we would have never got the classic Hell of a King Baby line, but just the whole way that it ends with that smart and stuff like that, I just like that better. And it leaves it open much better for future installments, which led to, you know, Ash vs. Evil Dead, which is phenomenal too. I absolutely love Ash vs. Evil Dead. It sucks that it got canceled. I mean, how much more can they have done? I don't know. And we have Evil Dead Rise apparently coming soon, but apparently Campbell's not going to be in it, but we hope for the best that it's going to be something good. I mean, this franchise has not failed me yet with any installment. Even in the comics, in which I'm not a real comic person, but I've read maybe 1 or 2 of them, and the video games and the new video game that just released and everything, which, you know what, that too. I started doing it. I did these films and covered this franchise for Happy Birthday to Bruce and the release of the video game. Had nothing to do with falling asleep during a movie on Tubi and waking up to the Evil Dead remake being on and any of that. It was it's a release of the video game and Happy Birthday Bruce. That's why I did this franchise. But like in that alternate ending and stuff, it's grim as hell, but it makes me think like it's still like London, like it's still England because of the landmarks we see. So like the potion helped him go through space and time, but not like location or geography or anything. So like even if he did wake up on time, like he did in the original ending, like in the theatrical ending with S-Mart and stuff, how did he get back to Michigan? Like if he's in England, how did he cross over the fucking ocean and get back to America and stuff like that? Like, and how would he have done it, even if he was in the end, the alternate ending with the dystopian future and everything's destroyed and shit like that? Like, that's just a nitpick. It's not what I do and shit. But yeah, how did he get back home? Like, there's no way. But that concludes the Evil Dead franchise. Man, what a brilliant franchise. What amazing, like I said, not a bad entry, nothing. Just perfect from beginning, conception, to the end of the TV series and the remake. And I haven't played the video game yet. I'm a huge gamer. And huge Dark Souls, all From Software's games and stuff. I challenge run the games and everything like that. I have a link to my main YouTube account in the About Channel section and stuff, where I have a lot of challenge runs of the Souls games and everything like that. So those are mostly the games I play and stuff, but I played the Friday the 13th game when that came out, and I absolutely want to play the Evil Dead game. I just completely keep forgetting about it to just buy it and play it, but I hear it's great. Like, I hear it's absolutely awesome. So that's another just great thing added to this franchise. So we can only hope for Evil Dead Rise to be yet another just amazing entry in this franchise that cannot fail. Like, it cannot fail at this point. Like, from fucking 1979, 1980, when they started filming the first one, this franchise just can't do wrong. It can't. Raimi is just such a fucking genius, like I've said so many times in this series. It blows my mind, and that's that's the reason why he's one of my favorite directors of all time, because it's brilliant. He's just absolutely a just amazing, brilliant, virtuoso filmmaker. And there's a reason that his career blew off and he went on to do Spider-Man and now Doctor Strange and everything like that. Absolutely deserves every bit of recognition, respect, and money, everything that he went on to achieve. Because he absolutely 1000% deserves all of it. And I think that's a good end here for the franchise. But later I'm going to do, in my little video on political correctness and everything like that I mentioned, I have a dear friend, one of my best friends, who wanted me to do a movie for a while now since I started the channel. And it's a very controversial movie, and I said I'm sure people can guess from watching that video what it is and stuff, and I said I'd get to it last night. And I say that a lot on the channel, and I'll have this video up tonight and it won't be till the next late morning or something, or later in the day the next day or something. Real life shit comes into play and stuff, and I just can't get to it in the time I want to, but at least I always get them up eventually. But I will have that up later tonight. And right now, I feel like after watching all these movies, I feel like hopping on Netflix and watching some of Ash vs. Evil Dead, because I am now in just a full-on Raimi, Evil Dead, Bruce Campbell kick right now, which is one of the few things that can get me off a slasher, a slasher kick that I was on like last week and everything and stuff. Like, one of the only few things is like Campbell and Raimi and the Evil Dead. So I'm on a full-on Evil Dead kick now. I'm going to go watch some Ash vs. Evil Dead. I will see you guys later tonight with a movie review request from my friend. So have a good day, everybody, and I'll see you later.